Hello and welcome to the NBA DFS on the RotoRadar podcast. My name is Joshua Riemer, joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Jared Block over on my right. Jared, it is a Monday slate. It is a much larger Monday slate than what we are used to. Still, we're here to break down all 12 games in some fun fashion. Then get a little bit of a break tomorrow, man. A nice little break from the action on Tuesday due to Election Day.
Right. Definitely happy that the NBA is doing this. It's great for everything. Not everything is about sports, but here we are talking about that on this show. We have a lot to talk about for such a loaded Monday slate and a few things to catch up on over the weekend. But yeah, didn't think we'd get it a day so soon in terms of having a complete day off. But hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely happy to get an unexpected day off for us because we're going 7 days a week right now with NFL and NBA, and even if it was just NBA, we'd be going 7 days a week. But it's we're getting into that meticulous grind time right now where we're in the middle, or getting not in the middle of NFL at the getting past the start of NBA, and it's that time where you just got to put your head down and grind through 7 days of sports. So that's what we're in the middle of, and nice to get a day off tomorrow. But today, like I said, covering all 12 games from the evening window of NBA. Lots of fun matchups, lots of high-paced matchups, some juggernauts facing off against each other, which should be fun. Jared, any other thoughts? If not, let's get into this thing, man.
Just the initial piece here. We'll refer to this a lot today, but you kind of already mentioned it a little bit. We have a lot of pace differences today, and it's not something I think we're going to have every single day to this extent because I just think that the variance with that is kind of all over the place. But yeah, lots of really big differences in pace today.
Yeah, should be fun. Should be a lot of fun to talk to. By the way, we keep this show for free over on Twitter, but if you want to go sign up for all of this content and more, you can go sign up on rotoradar.bet. If you use the link in Jared or I's bio, you can get that for just $1 for the first week, $9.99 after that to access all of our content. All right, let's get into it, man. Let's start with this first game. It's going to be the Mavericks facing off against the Orlando Magic. Currently, Orlando Magic are favored at home. Shocking. 4-point spread there. Over under is set at 222.5. Let's start out with this Orlando side, start going over some of the injuries on this side as well. Currently, we already know that Markelle Fultz is going to be out for this game. Gary Harris as well going to be out for this one. Jonathan Isaac questionable, and Wendell Carter also out for this game. So definitely this Orlando team dealing with the injury bug early on this season. I think this is a good spot to get some exposure. I think you almost have to with all the injuries you have. It's not like this Dallas team plays an elite defense of any sort, so I like this side. It's just kind of the question of who. And I think you can narrow it down to two names. I think you're either going Paulo or Franz, and it's just which one do you end up liking more. From a usage perspective, Franz gets the advantage. From a overall boost stance, I think Paulo gets a little bit more of an advantage. We've seen the rebound rate go up quite a bit without Markelle and Wendell. We've seen the assist rate go up like almost 10% at this point. I think there's a lot of benefits to both of them. Again, it just depends on who you want here. Who would you lean towards? And is there anyone else that I'm not naming that you might be willing to consider on this Orlando Magic team?
Yeah, well, I think initially that's definitely where we should start this conversation. I think both have the ability to garner ownership, and both are going to be in a solid spot. I think Orlando's undeniable on this slate. I think you have to have interest in a lot of that, and I agree with that. We saw the other day, actually, before I get into that, I think I would lean with Paulo just slightly. I think that there's just enough here to say that there's just, I can't get there without just saying the Dallas interior is something that we can just take advantage of here. And if you're going to get, some more looks around the rim, more rebound opportunities, I think that creates a better spot for Paulo. But I also think that Franz can definitely get his own in this, right? So I think both are fine. I would get the slight edge to Paulo there. And I guess the next place I want to take this is the fact that, you do get this amazing matchup for these centers here. We kind of saw this over the weekend pan out where Goga Batadze just immediately steps in against the Lakers, gets, again, 5 blocks, but a double-double in 25 minutes. So at 4,800, this is something that we'll attack all season in terms of centers against this team. I don't think Derek Lively necessarily is able to stop Goga or Mo Wagner here. But can we count on either of these guys being a lock and load in terms of a price structured fantasy play?
I like Goga. I like the fact he got 25 minutes. I worry a little bit about how close that game was, and maybe that's a little bit more attributing to the fact that he got 25 instead of like around 20.
Yeah.
Still, I like the spot. I think the overall upside is there. I think the price tag is certainly there for you. I worry about using him on a one center site like FanDuel when you do have a lot of good center options today that we'll kind of talk through. So
Yeah.
I like Goga. Don't get me wrong. I think this price is really what you're aiming for here. It's also just like how much Orlando can you really expose yourself to, right? Because it's 12 games. You got to pick some of the best players in the best spots. And when you're talking about a 12-game slate, you got to be a little bit more selective. Goga feels like a guy that could end up falling off at the end of the day.
Yeah, on FanDuel, I definitely understand the sentiment. I think on DraftKings, where you're playing the top 8 plays, maybe he does move up the list a little bit more here. If you get less than 25 fantasy points here, you're probably not happy about that. So at least that's somewhat of a concern. But I think that if he gets you 25 plus minutes, he should be able to get there. And the 5 blocks thing is not something we should definitely expect night in and night out, but he's good for 1 or 2 a game. So, I mean, FanDuel is where you'd benefit from that the most. I agree, though. Like, I think you should be playing at least 2 Orlando guys. I can't necessarily say I want him to be one of those 2 right off the bat. He'd be a nice third
Yeah,
spot.
for sure. Especially with guys like Cole Anthony, Anthony Black coming in at a really cheap price tag, got the start
Yeah.
last time out, instantly filled in 30 minutes. Now, it was an unproductive 30 minutes, but it's still 30 minutes at the point guard position for this team. It's going to mean something to them. Um, Cole Anthony is going to continue to be a big usage guy. I think last time I checked, he had the highest usage on the team. That was on Friday. Today,
Yeah.
that's not the case. I think it's Franz now, but still, his usage is pretty overall solid coming off of the bench. I think there definitely are options here. It's just like how much, again, kind of like you said, like I can't imagine having more than 2. And if you're going to end up having more than 2, then I don't know. You're just limiting your upside in other spots, most likely.
Yeah, you definitely are. And I think that this is, somewhat of not even somewhat, this is a huge pace down spot for Orlando, too. 12th in pace for Orlando, 29th in pace for Dallas. So that is somewhat noteworthy here. And I think that, the total definitely says that as well. I don't know. I just kind of, you do need exposure here. It's just how much, and, you'll know really early whether or not you're going to be able to win in cash games or not with this game.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely don't want to have too much exposure here. Let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about Dallas, and let's talk about an Orlando defense that has looked really, really good to come on to start out the year. One of the best defensive teams in terms of defensive rating out of everyone in the NBA. They're ranked second right now, only behind the Timberwolves at 103 for their defensive rating. So, I mean, I don't really understand getting any Dallas pieces in. They're not nearly as injured anymore. So give me your thoughts here on this Dallas team. Do you think they're a necessity, or do you think that it's something that you might be able to stay away from?
Well, Kyrie coming in just blows everything up in terms of everybody, but Luka is not really as much in play for cash. The pace up spot is very good. Just like we said, is negative for Orlando. This is the positive for Dallas here. So I think Luka on a 12-game slate is incredibly valuable from a tournament perspective. The spread's good. The total could be better. But again, like if this game stays close, it's because Luka puts up 70 fantasy points. So that's where I think I would get it. But other than that, I don't think it's worth waiting for Maxi Kleber injury news to really spark any interest there.
Yeah, this team does a really good job of limiting 3-pointers, and that kind of takes away Dallas's game because they are such a 3-point heavy team overall in the NBA right now. So, like, I don't know. I just can't really get behind it at the end of the day. Um, I think it's okay. I think guys like Luca are going to be guys who make their shots consistently, but like he's most likely going to get Franz on him. That's going to be a tough matchup. Kyrie's most likely going to get a good defender. That's going to be a tough matchup. And then I just don't know if I want to take any of these secondary guys with no injuries. So most likely just off of Dallas at the end of the day. Anything else here for you? If not, we can
No,
move over to pick 'em.
no, Pickham's going to be fine. Like the only reason we're talking about this game is because Orlando has a lot of injuries. I would have, any other slate probably wouldn't be talking about it as much.
Yeah, definitely agree there. All right, let's talk about the pick'em side of things. Let's talk about Orlando first because I think they're the more interesting side. And I say that as I don't have any props on my board for Orlando over on Prize Picks. On Underdog, do they have any props for the Orlando Magic?
Yeah, we got the main guys here. They kind of stayed away from posting any guards, so you're going to get Paulo Franz. You do have Suggs and Goga, and that's it. That's all we're going to get here. So I don't mind the Goga stuff. I'd probably again lean toward a fantasy point number, and I don't have that right now, but I would expect it to be around 25. I would take the over of that. Maybe they'll put it a little bit higher, but I could certainly get behind 17 and a half points rebounds. We know the double double upside is there in this matchup. As far as anything else goes, I mean, Paulo 20 and a half points is certainly viable. Maybe you want to put in some rebounds in there too. 27 and a half would be that line. I'm okay with either of those. I don't think you need to like jam it in necessarily. I think it's just fine for what it is, and they're accounting for that. So if there was anybody I would be more like just interested in no matter what, I think it would just be Bankero, and that's kind of it.
When with these guys out, Gary Harris, Markel Fultz, and Wendell Carter, we have seen Paula's assist rate go up 7% so far this season. I
Okay.
really want to attack these assists because I think, everyone looks at like this as like a classic structure. Very rarely is like the point guard, the actual point guard, especially in a situation where you're missing your top point guard in Markel Fultz, who's kind of your assist man. Anthony Black isn't going to act as a distributor most likely today. That distributor so far this season, when these guys are out, has been Paulo. And so I think you're getting a really low line at 4.5, and I think it's something he could cover today, especially against a Dallas defense that I don't respect a whole lot. 10 assists in the game against the Lakers, 5
Yeah.
assists against the Utah Jazz. Those are the two last games that Markel Fultz missed. So I really do like this assist spot for Paulo today. And he's been
Yeah.
covering this number even without those guys too, right? Like he got 5 against, he's covered this 4 out of the 6 games so far this season. He's kind of been hovering around that 4.5 line, but we've seen it take a very clear jump without Markel. And so I do really like this Paulo assist spot.
Yeah, I mean, not coincidentally, since those injuries have happened, his points assists numbers have pretty much cleared by 10. So the last 2 games, and I think that's not coincidence there. So if he's going to be able to get you 20 plus points, I think that you can attack a points assist number, which as of right now sits at 25. So you'd be looking for him to clear, get around 18 and 20, and then those assist numbers come along with it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else here, Jared? If not, we can move on into the next game.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else. I think that trying to go for a Luka number is always okay, but like you said, just going to be a tough perimeter defense, and not allowing a lot of 3 pointers is going to limit the upside everywhere.
For sure. All right, let's move on into this next one. Next one coming up is a really fun one. Spurs facing off against the Pacers. 9-point spread here. Over under is at 238. Let's talk about this Spurs side first. We already got the news that we're going to be missing Devin Vassell in this game.
Mm-hmm.
We are waiting on the news of what is going to happen with Keldon Johnson, who's currently questionable for this game. This is a massive game. There's a massive total applied to it at 238. I
Yep.
really wanted to play Keldon before we found out this wrist injury was going to be put him at questionable. But I I really like Victor Wembanyama right now. I mean, I think, we've been talking about it for a while, how he's going to pop off for a 50 soon. And I think he did actually pretty recently in that game, yeah, against
Yep.
Toronto and against Phoenix. But it seems like he's really finding his footing. This seems like a really solid pace for him in terms of the game matchup overall. Pacers, one of the worst defenses in the NBA at this current moment. I really like the Wembanyama play. Also, most points allowed in the paint belong to this Pacers team right now. I could see Wemby going absolutely insane here. So I really like Wembanyama. Kind of want to plant flag him or flag plant him, to be honest with you, because I think the play is that good, especially without Devin Vassell. I think the only thing that prevents this from going well is the game getting out of hand.
Which I understand from some aspect that we could potentially see that being a thing, as the Pacers are almost a double-digit favorite. That kind of tells me that Keldon is trending towards being more of a doubtful, questionable. Uh,
You know,
but that's kind of how that goes. But end of the day, for the Spurs, this is one of the slate's largest differences in pace. And Indiana, we know, is it's going to be a top three team in pace all season. Right now, they rank second behind Washington. And then you have this San Antonio team that's going to rank in the bottom five most likely, as they sit 26th right now. So again, huge jump up in pace for the Spurs team. Agree with you. Wemby, certainly a guy that can get the job done. We've seen that the peripherals have been there more recently. And so, yeah, I like the spot there. I think it's great. And it kind of just depends on what happens with Keldon, like you mentioned, and hopefully, and not even hopefully, we will get that news beforehand. So I definitely like that. I also think that you can, start to take a look at some other guys on the team, and obviously it does kind of depend on what happens with the Keldon Johnson spot. But I do think that this is a somewhat interesting spot, not only for Victor, but for Zach Collins as well. I think that he could be a guy that takes a huge step forward if there's no Johnson here, and obviously that would affect all the ball handlers, Trey Jones, Jeremy Sohan as well. So there's a lot to like here. Just kind of need to know how the news shapes out.
yeah, for sure. Definitely a lot of usage to be picked up if some of these guys are out. I mean, like you start getting talking about Jeremy Sohan if we find out this Keldon is going to be out. Again, it just all comes down to like, is this game going to blow out? I honestly don't think it is. Like I just have I feel like the San Antonio team does a good job of keeping it close when Victor has the chance to score. Victor
Yeah.
should have plenty of chances to score. I don't know. I just don't feel like it's going to be this big of a blowout to where I'm going to get concerned. So like I really like the Wemby play. I think that's one of the better plays that you can play today, honestly.
Well, I mean, you kind of just have to double down, and you can feel good about, like, if you think Wemby has a fantastic game, that would be pretty much the decision you would need in order for this game to stay close. Like, if he's going for 50, 60, that means this game is definitely down to the wire, or they're winning.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Anyone else entice you on San Antonio? Again, we kind of got to wait on this news, but like guys like Trey Jones definitely seem like they could get a little bit more run. And in a high pace environment, I feel like you're not only playing Wemby, but you might play another guy. Malachi Branham was the guy who got the start in the last game for Devin Vassell. He played 25 minutes, ended up scoring pretty well at 25 FanDuel points. Anyone else that you draw interest in potentially?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of know dating back to last year that Malachi is kind of the guy that steps forward with Keldon Johnson being out. I don't know. I think that I would definitely play Wemby. I probably wouldn't go to the Zach Collins range in cash, but in GPP that would be where you would get different exposure if you wanted to go Collins instead of Wemby at a cheaper price tag. I'd probably play one of Sohan or Trey Jones if we knew that Keldon was out, though.
For sure, I can get behind that. All right, let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about this San Antonio or this Pacers team facing off against San Antonio, and a San Antonio team that's also not very good on defense. It definitely is going to struggle with a lot of aspects of their game. I really like Tyrese here, man. I mean, I know he just had an electric performance for us on Saturday that really
Yep.
helped us out with that 63 FanDuel point total. I think another one's coming. The Spurs team not very good against the 3 point shot. Tyrese took 12 of them in the last game. He's consistently been a threat at the 3 point range. So like, I like Halliburton here. I even think Miles Turner is a guy that I could actually get behind potentially.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what else do you like for this or for this Pacers team? Not nearly as injured as the Spurs, but definitely feels like there's a few guys that you could potentially play with such a high pace.
I think you play one of the two studs here, meaning Tyrese or Miles Turner. One of those guys is definitely cash game viable here. Now I think that Turner probably is the guy that doesn't get clicked on as much because there seems to be value at the 7 p.m. window with Gogo Batadze. But I think that Turner is definitely just fine for a candidate here. You probably want Tyrese for cash games, but I think both are fine. It's very, very close for me. I probably will side with Tyrese, though. And we know that, scoring was definitely unleashed the other night. They lost that game against Charlotte. I think the matchup's equally as good here. The only thing that's a problem is that the pace of play is nearly not what it was for this team when they faced Charlotte versus what they're going to get tonight.
Yeah, it
Well,
definitely
I
isn't.
shouldn't say that. Charlotte's is running a little bit slower than they were
Yeah,
last year.
for sure. I like the spot. I like the game overall. I think it's a really good DFS think it's a good game to get some exposure to, both in
Yeah.
Pick'em and in on FanDuel and DraftKings. It's just the question of who and how many, and that's not something we can really answer until we get more news from the Spurs.
Yep. I mean, it's expensive, right? Hallie, Victor in cash games to run this big thing back, but I think it's one of the better things that we're going to get today. So
Yeah,
we'll talk more about some other value spots here as they are opening up throughout the day. But, you know, I think on a team that doesn't really have anybody injured, Tyrese still should be considered as one of the better cash game plays at the position
yeah,
and just
definitely one of
overall.
the better. Well, yeah, one of the better spend ups overall, right? Like I think Jokic is definitely someone we're going to talk about. I think the Boston situation is definitely something we'll talk about. We'll talk about Giannis, but Tyrese is the one guy out of all these guys that isn't above 10K and makes for a pretty good play overall. All right. Anything else for the FanDuel and DraftKings side of things? If not, let's move over to PrizePicks and Underdog and discuss some potential plays there.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I think we can go ahead and just start with the Victor stuff right away.
Yeah, for sure. 21 and a half points over on Underdog, 32 and a half points, rebounds, and assist. No fantasy score number up, but I'd be curious to see what that is. I don't know. Give it all to me. I really like the points number. I think he is able to score pretty easily with a Pacers team that gives up so much inside. I also don't mind. There's a Halliburton and Wembanyama, 43 and a half points combined. I think you're banking on both of them getting around 25, and I feel like that's pretty solid. So I definitely don't mind. I definitely don't mind that.
It's definitely doable. I think the Tyrese spot. I think that you saw encouraging things against Charlotte there, and I feel like that's a little bit overzealous to think that he's gonna just go out here and score 25 to 30 points a game. But I think in this matchup he certainly could, right?
Yeah,
I would look for a points assist number for Halliburton myself though,
yeah.
which
Point. Oh, go ahead. You probably already have it.
that's really gonna be one of my only plays there. So it's 34 and a half. You're still banking on him scoring at least 20 for that, if not 22 to 23.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it, man. I think in this matchup with the pace, with the total, there's a good chance he ends up scoring 25 in this one. And I guess I will rephrase my comment on that. Webb Mignana and Tyrese. You only need him to score 20. You just need Webb to score 25, and then you have it. I like that. I think that's pretty doable for both. All right.
Pacers
Anything?
highest team total. That's the last thing I'll say. Highest team total on the slate, 124.
Yeah, and I wish you could have more exposure to them. It's just like we said, like not being injured. How much exposure do you really want on a slate that's filled with injuries? It's
Yeah.
hard to get that much exposure.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Agreed.
All right. Anything else here? If not, let's move on to the next game.
Uh, I at least want to just touch on where you think that Turner could fall today at center, just in general, in terms of
What do you
like,
mean?
is he a top three center play out overall?
Uh, Maybe close to it, but nah. I think top five is more where I would place him. Definitely upside there. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. His outside shooting is like the main thing that I'm intrigued in. He's taking some of the highest 3-point shooting out of any center in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
It's definitely a spot where he'll be able to take advantage of that against the Spurs, and hopefully Wemby doesn't guard him. I think that's my
Right.
main concern is like if
Yeah.
Wemby's able to get out to the corner on him, then like it's a lot tougher matchup. If they task Collins with going out to the corner on him, I think it gets a lot easier for him. And not knowing that before the game just makes things feel iffy.
Sure. Yeah. Last thing here on this is that for you GPP players out there, this is a great game to get off of more of the popular plays. Like you have plenty
Yeah,
of different pivots that you can make.
for sure. All right. Let's keep it moving. Move on into this next game. Going to be the Warriors facing off against the Pistons. Pistons are at home and 7-point underdogs. Over under is at 224 and a half. Let's start out with this Warriors team. They are going to be healthy. No Clay Thompson injury designation or anything. I I've been struggling through this one all day because I actually think that like Steph and some of these other guys that can get off 3-pointers could do well here. I will also note that currently Detroit leads the league in turnover rate, and so I think Draymond, a guy who's going to get a ton of steals, could potentially work out for you at that 6K price tag.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm willing to bite the bullet on it though, especially on a back to back. These guys are mostly older players too. It's a traveling back to back as well. Like there's a lot of iffy parts to this one. So I don't know. How do you judge this Warriors team on such a large slate?
Back to back on the road. Draymond's questionable. You could always this entire season just see a somebody get ruled out for rest purposes. Thankfully, we'll have that news if it comes. But yeah, two of the slowest paced teams in the league, both bottom 20. So I don't really have much interest if this team is fully healthy.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And I would say most of the same on the other side. I think the one guy that I could get behind on the Pistons is Jalen Duren. This team, the Warriors from a center position, have been absolutely abysmal this season when considering defense first position. Third worst team in the NBA right now. I could definitely see Jalen Duren getting there. I don't know if I'm willing to take him at such a high price tag at 7,400, but like the spot is there, the matchup is there. I think this game should stay close enough to where everyone gets full run because Detroit's been playing a lot better than they have in the past. Again, it's just like, are you willing to bite the bullet? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I think this game is just not as intriguing as the previous two. And we only want the first one because Orlando has guys that are out. I just think when you compare that to anything else, Golden State's definitely one of the lower teams on that list in these first couple games. So that's where I'm probably not interested. Detroit, I mean, I guess you can make arguments that, like, there's no Joe Harris, there's no Bogdanovich, there's probably not going to be any Alec Burks tonight. Jaden Ivey's got an illness. We'll see if he's going to suit up. So if that happens, maybe we get some interest in Oscar Thompson. But I think that that's just an assessment before lock kind of situation. And how much exposure do you want at the 7 p.m. window today?
Yeah, not too much, that's for sure. I don't know. I just feel like this game overall, like on such a large slate, on a 7 game slate, I'd be willing to go more in depth and talk about some more flyer
Mm-hmm.
options. But on a 12 game slate, it's like there's no real reason to talk about this because most likely no one from this one ends up in final lineups today or in final pick 'em options either.
Yeah, I would say we have the James Wiseman narrative, but he's played 6 minutes all season, so that is no
Yeah.
longer a thing. Um, I guess I'd only be the last thing, and then I think that you can tell where I'm at with this one. I think just straight up, give me Miles Turner over Jalen Duren 9 times out of 10 today.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And there's even other centers on the slate that I would take over Jalen Duren at the end of the day. All right, pick 'em. I don't have anything for pick 'em. I mean, if you wanted to take a chance on something, I think Durden would be your guy. I think pure points is the way I would go at 12.5. But again, like I'll just stay away from this one.
Yeah, me too. I really don't have much interest here.
All right, let's move on. Talk about this next game, which is the Washington Wizards facing off against the Philadelphia 76ers. Currently, Sixers come in at 11.5 point favorites at home. Over
Mm.
under is at 228.5. I have never felt more confident that this game is going to be a blowout than I do right now. Pacers currently top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating. Wizards currently bottom 10 in both categories. Wizards are going to pick up the pace a little bit, but I think Philly's going to thrive under that with, Maxey being able to shoot a little bit more and Embiid getting off a few more shots. I could not be less interested in this game because of the blowout risk that you do have coming in. If you wanted to take a risk, I'd say you play Kyle Kuzma on one side, you play Embiid or Maxey on the other, and you hope the game stays close. But it's a big
Yeah.
hope.
Just feels like everybody on the Sixers team could fall 10 points short of what they're supposed to. Same thing kind of goes for Washington. I don't have much interest here, man. So the last thing I would mention here is I don't even feel that comfortable rolling out any like in case of emergency, blowout GPP plays because you have Denny Avdia and Corey Kispert both game time decisions. They've both went through shoot around. I don't know. Kind of feels murky there. I would have suggested Koulibaly again, but I can't get there. And we also know that Daniel Gafford might miss this game too. So it's a disaster all the way around for Washington. This game could be 25 plus points or more.
Embiid could put up 40 and 15 and 3/4, though. I will be completely honest and say that if Gafford ends up sitting and he gets the Mike Muscala matchup,
Oh, it's great, but
y'all better watch out.
I mean,
I mean,
it's
he could
it's
put.
great, but like I just think that the 70-point upside's gone from Embiid today.
You think
unless this
so? I
game
mean,
stays close. But
we've seen him put up massive numbers in three quarters. I mean,
oh, I know,
I'm not saying
I know.
I'd play it. I'm saying I'm willing to play it in tournaments regardless,
Oh
just
yeah,
because the
sure.
spot's solid. You just gotta hope. I think you run it back with someone on the other side to hope that this one doesn't turn into a blowout, and that would be Kyle Kuzma on the other side that I do really like.
Yeah, I have no issues with it. I think we're gonna start to see this Philly team get a little bit more confusing outside of the Embiid Maxi stuff as things progress and as they get some of these Batums, Covingtons, Martin, like KJ Martin. I don't see why he's not in the rotation moving forward. Marcus Morris will play 15 minutes, so things are going to get a little bit confusing here, and it's hard to take advantage of that as of this moment.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is. All right. Anything else here? If not, we can move on to Washington really quick where I'll just say the same thing. It's Kyle Kuzma or bust. They do a really good job at guarding the point guard position, but the one spot that this Philly team ends up struggling defending is the small forward position. So I could see Kuzma potentially getting there if this one stays close. He'd be my pick to run it back with if you're going to play any 76ers because you're going to need Kyle Kuzma to put up 30 plus.
Would agree. I don't have much more to say other than that. And to be completely transparent, I have zero interest in tonight's pick'em selections for this game.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. So if you want to, we can just move on into the next one.
I think we should. Let's just spend like 30 seconds talking about like we say we have no interest and that wipes out completely. I understand there will be people that are talking about plays and stuff like that, but you're just at the end of the day putting too much risk into something that you just don't know the outcome of. And I think that not nine, maybe like 7 times out of 10, this game does not stay close enough to hit these numbers.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. All right, let's move on into this next game. Talk about the Bucks facing off against the Nets here. Brooklyn Nets are at home and are +5 underdogs. Over under is set at 233.5. Start with this Bucks team, man. I actually really like the Giannis play today, and I don't know if I've ever seen him this cheap. I know it's mostly just due to the numbers he's put up recently, but like Knicks, Raptors, Miami, all Philly, all these teams do a really good job at defending the interior. This is his first matchup against a team that is going to be
Yeah.
without Nick Claxton. Is going to most likely be Ben Simmons matched up to him, but Ben Simmons just hasn't been the defensive juggernaut that we've seen in the past. We've seen him actually struggle from the defensive side of the ball, and so I really like Giannis here, man. Like I think 10,300. He's going to pop on optos, and I think it's perfectly justified because he's too good for this price tag, and a slow start to the season shouldn't dictate the fact that he's this cheap.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. I guess the issue that I would have just in general is the fact that they are one of the healthiest teams on the slate, if not in the league, in terms of just their depth is. I mean, you can say whatever you want about the depth, I guess, but there's just no injuries here, and Chris Middleton's going to ramp up continuously. I mean, look, I think they're still trying to figure it out in terms of where things fit between where they're winning and what the usage rates on the team should be. And if we're playing a price structure game, if we expect this game to stay close, and I think it should, Milwaukee and Brooklyn are both top 10 in pace. So there's a lot to be desired here. And the fact that we've continued to target big men against the Brooklyn Nets. So I have zero issues with the spot. It's kind of weird that we're just not all of a sudden just like, I don't think the field's necessarily super gung ho Giannis right now because of the last week of results. And so I think box score watchers will be off this. Maybe the optimizer people will be on it. But either way, I think the spot's very good. I guess, this is one of those spots that if he does underperform, though, he does tank your night.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think he's a necessity necessarily. I'm just saying that like with the price tag he's at and with the matchup that this Brooklyn team presents with allowing so many points in the paint, there's
Mm-hmm.
no one in the NBA outside of there's one player above Giannis in terms of taking shots within 5 feet of the basket. I completely am blanking on who that player is, but he takes 9 per game. And like I said, that's second most in the NBA. I think the Giannis spot's really, really good. It's just like 10,000's a lot. There's going to be a great game later on that we're going to talk about that. Like, I think you need at least one high priced guy on both sides, and you kind of just got to decide on who that is. And then we already talked about potentially playing Tyrese and Wemb. Like, there's other options for sure. It's just like this one with Giannis is definitely it's definitely solid, and I can guarantee you he's going to be in some lineups because that opto side of things is going to recommend it with seeing that salary change.
Yeah, I mean the writing on the wall here is that there's injuries in this Denver game at the late night hammers, so it's probably where things end up leaning today. They're forcing your hand a little bit, and I do think that Giannis is a strong tournament play. And you can kind of just say that in general, Milwaukee's spots recently have been either tough matchups or blowouts, and they've been on the wrong side of those blowouts too. Um, Philly, Miami, New York, all tough interior matchups. Atlanta, they got blown out in. Toronto, they got blown out in. So Giannis has not had 50 points yet, and I feel like this could be the night to do that. But will 50 FanDuel points do anything for you on the slate at that price?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a spot where you need more than 50 from him on such a massive slate. You need probably like 60 or 70, and
Yep.
I don't know. I go back and forth on whether he can get 60. I'll say this: I feel more confident in Tyrese getting 60 than I do in Giannis getting 60 today.
I feel more confident Jokic gets 80 than Giannis gets 60.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the Jokic spot soon.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the other side. I think there's a really, I hate to say safe because we usually don't like to use that word, but I do really like the Dorian Finney-Smith side of things here.
Mm-hmm.
Just the minutes look really solid. Got all the way up to 36 against Boston. That's a season high. He's playing against a Milwaukee team that's having a lot of trouble with guarding the four right now. Worst defense against the power forward position. One of the worst defenders against the power forward position in the NBA. I think Dorian Finney-Smith is really solid, man. I think at 5,100, where you're seeing this price tag go down from where it was earlier on, I think there's a lot of upside here.
I think it has a decent amount to do with the fact that the Bucks are just really struggling to, and we saw this coming. They just have a really, they'll put Giannis's man in a pick and roll with Dame's man, and then Dame's just left out in the middle of nowhere trying to defend a three that it's not going to happen. So yeah, DFS Dorian Finney-Smith's averaging anywhere from 7 to 9 3-point attempts. I think he could be really successful in that today.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. What else do you like here, if anything? Is there anything else that
You want
jumps off
some
to the
kind
page?
of you want some kind of exposure here. I think to a guy that anybody that can shoot threes on this team for Brooklyn, and there's just enough to say like I know Ben Simmons is in, I know Spencer Dinwiddie's in. Um, I think that's kind of where maybe Cam Thomas could really thrive today in hitting 3-pointers. I don't know. I think you need somebody. The depth is certainly intriguing. I think that DFS probably is your best option though because of price. Would Lonnie Walker outdo anything for you here?
No, I think for me, I don't need anyone in this game.
You
The
don't need
total,
it. It is just kind of fun though.
yeah, for sure. I just think that you have better spots everywhere. Like you can spend your 7,800 or 7,100 on Cam Thomas, but wouldn't you rather spend it on a $7,700 Josh Giddey?
Sure. I mean that goes for
I
everybody
think,
on the OKC side.
yeah, but like that's my
Most,
point.
right?
That's my point is that like a lot of these guys are just I think going to get a little bit outplayed by the upside of that Oklahoma City game, and then you throw Boston into the mix potentially based on what news we get about Porzingis today.
Yeah.
It's just and Utah and Chicago is like a really good game where
Mm-hmm.
like what I think that you get the price tag of 7,400 on Zach Levine. Give me Levine over Cam Thomas 9 times out of 10 today, probably.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the reality of the situation is this is game 4 or 5 with Brooklyn injuries, and so you're not going to get too much value out of that spot anymore.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else here to talk about? If not, let's move on to the pick'em side because I think that's where Brooklyn might come a little bit more into play. Is that like if you wanted to take a Cam Thomas number over here, where you took 6 3-pointers attempted, 23 points overall, 32.5 fantasy score, those are numbers I could get behind for Cam Thomas on a pick'em site rather than trying to judge them against the rest of the slate.
Yeah, I don't mind that stuff here. I think that those things are fine, and I think we're gonna find ourselves attacking the 3-point attempts on either Prize Picks or Underdog most of the season against Milwaukee. So have no issues with that. For what that's worth, Cam Thomas is sitting at 6.5 threes attempted, and Dorian Finney-Smith is sitting at 7. It feels a little bit high, but I said he was averaging 7 to 9 threes, so that's interesting there. On the Milwaukee side, I'll just give you my stuff here. It's very simple. It's just Brook Lopez points 11.5, Giannis points 26.
Giannis with 26.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Okay. I think that's solid. What's Giannis fantasy score? Did you already say
Don't
that?
have it at the moment. I'll get it later. But Brook
30 or
Lopez, like I said, is
48.
11.5.
48. That's
Oh,
that's
okay.
kind of high.
Is it?
Well, I
We're
guess not
expecting him to hit
high.
over 50, right?
Yeah, we're expecting him to hit over 50. I don't know. It's very interesting to see where they have him projected at in terms of compared to the price tag that he's at currently. All right,
Would you
anything else
say,
here? Oh,
yeah,
go
just
ahead.
closing thoughts. Is this the best Giannis spot we've seen this season?
Uh mm, no. No, it's not. Well, this season? Yeah, I guess this
This
season
season?
probably. This
Mm-hmm.
season it definitely is. Like I said, he's been facing defensive juggernauts all year long, it feels like. So this season, yes. You'll see better though. I mean, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
the
Yeah.
point of he's faced off against a lot of good defensive teams and especially teams that know how to handle him too.
Yeah. Again, my point kind of just remains the same of like either they've been blown out or they've faced tough defenses. So if you can project, which is hard to at this moment, the Bucks seem very volatile in terms of projecting what they're expected to do. You can take advantage of it if you'd like to play it in tournaments.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else in this game? If not, let's move on to the next one.
No, next one is full of injuries. Actually, the next couple are.
Yeah, they definitely are. Next one up is going to be the Lakers facing off against the Miami Heat. Like Jared said, full of injuries is right. Lakers dealing with Jackson Hayes is questionable. Rui Hachimura is out. Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, and Jalen Hood Shafino are all injured. For the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler's probable, Duncan Robinson probable, RJ Hampton is doubtful, Nikola Jovic is questionable, and Caleb Martin is out. Start with this Lakers team. I start with them just to say, like, I'm not that interested. Like, I know the injuries pile up a little bit here. I think that's more of a depth problem than anything else, though. Um, Not a lot of main guys are getting injured in this situation. I also really don't want to play against the Miami Heat, who I respect overall as a defense. I don't know. Is there anyone that stands out to you from the Lakers standpoint? If not, then the Heat side is a lot more interesting, and there's just one guy that I really am excited to talk about over there.
For the Lakers, you can kind of just cancel guys out left and right. I guess the one guy, like, I don't. Davis, I think, is fine for his role recently, but there will just be better point per dollar plays. I expect Jimmy Butler to play in this one, so you can kind of cross off LeBron there. They kind of cancel each other out. Um, you can make a case that like D'Lo could be in a good spot against Tyler Hero, but do you really need to spend almost 7K on that on FanDuel? So you can, like I said, you kind of just cross each other, some of these guys out, and I think the injury thing is somewhat interesting, but with Torian Prince being back, with Christian Wood playing, I think that value kind of goes away because we've seen it increase the last couple of games here.
Yeah, D'Lo won't even guard, or Tyler Hero won't even end up guarding uh, D'Lo. It'll be Kyle Lowry most likely, and it's not like that's a good matchup. Kyle Lowry's been a really good defender. Honestly, Tyler Hero's been a really good defender so far this year. So like both of them are showing up. So either way, it's a tough matchup. Let's talk about the Miami Heat because that side's a lot more interesting with Tyler Hero over there. We've seen him kind of take over things, be a lot more proficient as a shooter. And last game, we saw him be a lot more proficient as an overall guy. Got 10 rebounds and 9 assists. I can't remember the last time Tyler Hero got close to putting up a triple double. So like what are your thoughts on him here? It's a decently good matchup against this Lakers team. I don't really think they have a defender to take him away. I think the spot's really solid overall.
Yeah, it's solid. I think that things should filter in this direction, right? Like Bam versus Davis, LeBron versus Jimmy. I think that things could definitely filter towards that direction. It's just like, do you want to spend the money to get there? Where the injuries certainly seem to be getting a little bit better for the Miami side. So I think he's fine. I would take Victor Wembanyama over him at the same general price range.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think there's definitely guys you're taking over him, but the play overall doesn't seem too shabby, and that's the only guy I'm interested in. I guess like Jimmy wouldn't be a bad option if he's good to go. We haven't seen him necessarily step up game at all, but like he steps up for these big matchups. He doesn't
Yeah,
like LeBron James, so like the matchup against LeBron against the Lakers, he could step up for that, and I could see that being a solid spot for him. But I think that's more tournament based and narrative based than anything else.
sure. I mean, there will be a time, I think, relatively soon where Butler's under 8K. We will be able to stream him in one of these spots.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else? If not, let's move over to pick'em stuff. And I don't know. Like you can attack a Tyler Hero number, I guess, on this side, but there's not much else in my eyes.
There's one number that stood out to me when I was doing research, and it was the Anthony Davis stuff. So I'm just going to completely skip over Miami if that's fine. I think that is what it is, and we'll have plenty of opportunities to bet on Tyler, Jimmy, Bam this season. Davis, it does feel like he is just in a spot where the assists have gone up, the points have been very consistent, and so I'm willing to attack either one of those numbers. I think the rebounds, uh, you know, that's definitely been a staple of consistency this season. But I just want to point out, like the offensive numbers have looked great. I understand it's a Bam matchup that we don't necessarily like as much, but I do think that if this game stays close, which Vegas expects it to be with a 1 point spread, do think that Davis is a good chunk of that. So I think that 28.5, 29.5 now. Wait, is this right? That's LeBron. Sorry. 28.5 points assists for Davis is something I can get into.
I can get behind it. I definitely don't mind it. I think it's solid. I think you can cover it with points alone, and you get a few
Sure.
assists to add on, and the spot's generally solid. Anything else here? If not, let's move on to the next game.
Are we interested whatsoever with any Lakers in the 3 point numbers against Miami?
No, not me at least. I don't know.
Okay.
I think the only sure things you can bet on in this offense right now are Davis and LeBron, and LeBron's kind of been all over the place, and some good, some bad, and Davis has definitely been solid, and I like the numbers you brought up, but that's about it. If you wanted to attack an AD 3 point number, I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, it's 1.5 Scorcher on Underdog. So
Oh, there you
I don't
go.
know. That's somewhat interesting. But other than that, I would have rather take the points assist anyway.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's keep it moving and move on into the next one, which is going to be the Clippers facing off against the Knicks. Currently, the Knicks are 1 point favorites right now, over under set at 223. We are expecting to see James Harden make his debut
Mm.
for the Clippers tonight. That is going to come with him getting filed into the starting lineup. Westbrook still sticking in the starting lineup. And so I think you have a very top heavy team that gets a little bit scary once you get to this bench and what pieces they hold. But um, I don't know. I think you're essentially attacking a brand new team now with this Clippers team, and you've just got
Hmm.
to see how the next 3 to 5 games end up playing out before you really attack them and use any pieces. And I wouldn't, even if this was a James Hardenless team again today, I still wouldn't play any Clippers because this Knicks defense is very, very good right now.
They've had a lot of well, some of these guys on this team have had a lot of time off as well. For the Clippers, I think the last game that they played was against the Lakers, right? 5 days
Uh,
ago.
yeah, yeah, I guess so. Wow.
I mean, that's a positive. We saw a lot of guys do really well because of lack of depth, but I just don't think I can necessarily go here. I mean, we even the depth issues. They're looking to sign a 2-way deal for Josh Primo, who's now back in the NBA. Terrence Mann's still hurt, but you still have. I mean, I don't know. I think that they're going to run a lot of like 2 stars on the floor, and then in crunch time they all come back in. So that is just something where I have zero interest on a slate like this. We'll see how it pans out. We'll see how they handle rest days because that could be a huge source of value moving forward. But all 4 of these guys are not going to remain upwards of mid 8s to 9K. I don't think personally.
Who dips below 7? It's probably Westbrook, right?
Probably Russ. Yeah, I think
But they said
James
Russ is
Harden's
going to
probably
keep.
comes down to 8K.
They said Russ is going to be the main ball handler here. If he's the main
Mm,
ball handler, like there's no way he falls under 7 in that role with this offense. I don't know. It's a whole bunch of interesting. Again, like I said, like I'm not willing to take a strong stance on anything until we get 3 to 5 games of fully seeing what this offense can hold. Um, I will also say that Coach Ty Lue already said that James Harden's going to be on a bit of a minutes limit today, so something to keep in mind if you expect Harden to ball out today or anything. That that minutes limit could hold him back.
yeah,
I don't think we
I
got
couldn't be less
specified
interested.
news. Yeah, well, I think I could be really interested in. Never mind, they've completely adjusted. Wow, 29 fantasy score for James Harden today. Like I know he's gonna have a minutes limit, but like they adjusted to this news a lot. Like we've seen minutes limits, like Lamelo's minute limit, like it was like around 30. Well, I mean, if Harden plays like 30 minutes, couldn't you see him getting over 29 fantasy score here?
Yeah, I mean, he will if he plays that amount. We just don't know what that looks like. Like,
Very
there's just a
interesting
lot
to
of
put
risk
him that
there, but
low.
it's fun.
I would love to do some deep diving and see if maybe I could key in on what this minutes limit could be because I mean, 29 is so low. That is such a low number for James Harden. In the
Yeah.
Garden too, like you're in a spot that I I just think in the Garden as well, like Harden's going to be solid enough to where he could potentially hit that really low number on pick'em stuff. I didn't mean to jump over to pick'em stuff. I was more so just curious at what the number was and that kind of blew my mind that it was that low.
Well, with like, Coffee doesn't play any minutes. Boston and Man are both out. They're asking a lot for Powell here, as well as Bones Highland, who I think actually is like the worst, or who takes the biggest hit out of all this stuff. Um, and I don't even think that Primo is necessarily going to be playing any minutes, if not even with the team. So there are cases to be made here. We also don't know what the Kobe Brown, PJ Tucker stuff looks like in terms of minutes played. I don't know, man. You could certainly find a way to get there if you think that. And, if you're playing hard in the 8,900, you have to have him hit 29 fantasy score.
Hey, you need a lot more than that.
You need a lot more than that.
8,900.
Yeah.
You need a lot more than that. Let's talk about this Knicks side. I mean, the Clippers are very good defensively as well. So, like, I have no interest in either side. We're probably taking too long on a inconsequential game at the end of the day. But if you
Yeah.
have any thoughts on the Knicks, you can give them now. I just think this Clippers team plays some incredible defense, and so there's no reason to take anyone here.
Just to kind of recap, I don't think anybody's cash game viable in this unless we find some kind of news here on the Clippers end. Pick 'em stuff, there are ways that you can find some things that could work out just because we are taking advantage of a market potentially that has yet to adjust. So that would be, again, probably the only lean there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about the pick'em side of things. I'm not interested in anything, man. I mean, I could maybe even get behind some unders, and maybe it's less of a James Harden situation and more so a situation of maybe some of these stars end up taking a big dip with him. So like, let's go
Sure.
see. I Kawhi, he's at gosh, he's low too. 37.5 fantasy score for Kawhi. Paul George is Paul George's numbers is at 35 and a half. They've kind of adjusted to all this really solidly. I would just stay away.
One number that is somewhat intriguing is James Harden 5.5 assists. That to me is somewhat interesting
Mm,
here. Like, I guess it's hard to see what the coach is versus his comments of like, "I'm not a system player. I am the system." Like, if that's the case, then he is going to be the guy that gets all the assists here. I don't know. Maybe that's just me reading too far.
maybe he's so off ball in this system that like because if they truly do mean what they said in terms of putting Westbrook with ball handling responsibilities, like 5.5 is asking for a lot there. And just like under these projections that they have over on Prize Picks, my guess would be he plays around 20 to 25 minutes. I don't know if he gets 5.5 assists in 25 minutes.
Taking the microscope away and just talking basketball, I couldn't be. You couldn't, if you gave me $100 to bet on any single NBA team, the Clippers would be one of the last teams I would bet that $100 on to make it to the championship.
Really?
I just don't think this works, man. We have seen this time and time and time again not work, and I don't think it works.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. I understand it for sure. Someone's got to take up some minutes here today if they're not going to play hard and big. Like if they're because like they're already super concentrated with their minutes right now. They had they had two guys play over 40 minutes against the Lakers, three guys play over 34 minutes. They're going to have to give some minutes up to someone. I'm just curious of how this all works out. Their bench is so leaky right now, especially at the guard position. It's really rough. Anyway, we've gone too in depth. This is more basketball talk than pick'em talk or anything. There's nothing here that I like. We can move on if you're ready.
I'm ready. We can go.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about this next game. Next game up is going to be the Celtics facing off against the Timberwolves. Celtics are 3-point favorites away from home. Over under is at 221.5. We already saw the Nuggets come in here and get beat. Timberwolves are playing a game where they have some incredible defense right now. Top defense in the NBA currently. Really good at defending the paint with Towns and Gobert. They have good wing defenders. I mean, I think everyone underestimates just how much Jaden McDaniels does on the defensive end. He is a stud in that aspect. So you have Jaden McDaniels taking away a lot of things. I would assume taking away what Jason Tatum brings to the table. I imagine that's the matchup he's going to get. It feels like a spot where you should be interested in the Celtic because it's a close game. It should be a close game. They're going to be missing Derek White today due to a personal thing. They're going to be missing potentially missing Kristaps Porzingis based on whatever news we get. If you
Yep.
lose Porzingis in there too, like who sticks out to you here? Because it feels like someone should.
It feels like someone should. That guy might be. The guy might be Jalen Brown. I think that Drew Holiday is definitely fine in this spot. Price tag is a little bit higher than it has been recently, and Brown definitely been on the wrong side of some blowout situations, especially against Indiana. But I do think that if A gets taken away, then I think B is Jalen Brown and A being Tatum. So sure, I think that is fine. And if we expect this game to stay close, which Vegas does think it will, um, I think you got to play somebody on Boston.
I think that someone could be Al Horford. I think that's what I'm leaning to because we already saw him start for Derek White, so we know the starting spot's nearly guaranteed. The spot gets elevated to Kristaps ends up missing out.
Yep.
And we saw him fill in really well. We saw him fit in perfectly with the team overall. Like I don't think he did anything extraordinarily, but like getting to 26 fantasy points, I feel like is on the lower end of that outcome. I think the points look really solid. The rebounds are going to be decent here. I think that if there's anyone who's going to have a chance to do well here, it is Al Horford. The problem that you're going to run into is that he's only center eligible compared to last year when he was power forward and center. And so I don't know if I recommend him as your number one center play of the day. But
Yeah, it feels like you lean Goga right there, wouldn't you?
No, I think Al Horford has the more solid role.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously completely dependent on Porzingis, but it's
Regardless
the
of
reason I
Porzingis, we
say
saw
that
Porzingis play
is
last game, and Al Horford did his thing.
I guess, but that was against Brooklyn, man. That's different.
Um, yeah, no, I don't think it's a matchup dependent thing for him.
Okay. I mean, 4,900 is tough, but I get it. Like he's probably good for 20 fantasy points, and anything else after that's a bonus.
I disagree with you there, but I think we can just agree to disagree on this one. I like the Al Horford spot. I think it's solid enough to where I'm willing to take a risk on it. I think I'm more comfortable attacking the center and power forward position against this Minnesota team than the guard positions against this Minnesota team. Mike Conley is currently one of the best defensively rated point guards in the league right now. Anthony Edwards is right behind him at 98 with his defensive rating. Like these two are playing better defense than anyone else on the team. Jaden McDaniels is even behind these guys in terms of defensive rating so far this year. So like, there's anywhere I'm going to attack, it's probably going to have to be the center position or the power forward position, and I feel like you have that chance with Al Horford today.
Okay. What happens if Kristaps is in? Do we play him?
I think the toughest conversation here is that like you're playing this guy at center where I don't know if you can risk that center spot on him on No, I don't think risk is the right word. I think comparatively, even point per dollar wise, there's going to be some guys that outperform Al Horford today. I just think I like the spot. I wish he was power forward eligible. That would make things a lot easier for me.
Sure, sure. Last question: if Porzingis is in, are you playing Victor Wembanyama or are you playing Kristaps at the same price?
Victor for sure, without a doubt.
If Kristaps is in, do you have to worry about Boston at all?
Uh, no. I will say that like the scary thing about this is that like with how they're going to have to shift. And I don't know, maybe they could put like Luke Cornett in there or some type of center that like I don't even know if they still have Cornett. But they
They
could
do.
put some type of big yeah, they could put some type of big man in there and still run like a double big. But like my assumption would be that instead of doing that, they would start a Peyton Pritchard, a Sam Hauser, one of these wings, and move over Tatum to the four, that makes things even more worrisome for the Tatum Brown situation. Because in that situation, Tatum gets outsized by Karl Anthony Towns, who has been a much better defender this year than he has been in years past. I think uh, he's kind of waiting off of those bad defender years. And then if that happens, you get Jaden McDaniels on Jaylen Brown, and so like things get infinitely tougher. I don't know. This is a tough spot. This is a really good defense. Like I said, Minnesota number one defense in the NBA, and it hasn't been against scrub teams. They just did it against the Denver Nuggets, which is huge to do against the Denver Nuggets. So, yeah, I think this is a tough one to break down for Boston. We just got to wait on that news and then go from there.
It is very tough. You also get the fact that there's going to be a lot of interest in the 7 p.m. window, and we still have a lot of injuries to find out after this game. So
Yeah,
you have a lot to plan for, and I think this is just one of those things that you got to keep an eye on.
for sure. All right. Anything else in this one? If not, let's move on to pick'em conversations.
I mean, do you want anything from the Minnesota side on
Oh,
the fantasy perspective if we get Kristaps out?
no, I think I'm good. This team's fully healthy, or at least pretty close to it. Yeah, fully healthy outside of Jalen Clark, who's dealing with that Achilles injury. No thanks. With them fully healthy, I think the only reason that you even look at the Celtics today is because of White and Kristaps potentially being out. If everyone
Yeah,
was healthy in this game, this would be the easiest fade of the century. We could instantly skip over it.
for sure. I definitely don't mind it for what it's worth. I have zero leans. I'm just stating that Underdog has Kristaps props available.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's talk about underdog and all that. Anything interest you here in terms of what you have for some of those Celtics props?
No, there's nothing here. I don't really want to attack anything.
I think unders could really be in play here, man. I'm halfway tempted to say like a Drew under is something that I would consider. Um, man, uh, yeah, I could see some unders being in play here for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. Well, I mean, this one feels like it's appropriately priced for Tatum in a good spot. 44 and a half points, rebounds, assists. That doesn't seem like something that McDaniels is going to allow him to do today.
I would agree. Again, you kind of just got to wait on this injury news and like what the starting lineup presents because it completely changes how their lineup goes if they're missing Porzingis because you have to make so many big decisions of who that fifth starter is going to be after that. Um, yeah, this injury puts him in a tough spot and kind of makes you realize giving up Malcolm Brogdon might have not been the right choice because their depth is severely limited at this point.
Yeah, okay. I don't really have much else. One of the lowest totals on the slate.
Yeah, and for good reason, obviously. All right, let's move on to another game, a game that I said that has some sneaky stuff that I really like. It's the Utah Jazz facing off against the Chicago Bulls. Bulls come
Mm.
in as 4-point favorites. Over under is at 223. Both of these teams are in the bottom 10 of defensive rating so far this season. Both of them have some pretty clear weaknesses. And let's start with this Utah team facing off against a Bulls team that's allowing points in the paint pretty regularly, bottom 10 team in points in paint allowed, not a great defensive three team. And I think that's the main spot that I want to target because that's where they're the worst. Bottom five defensively against the 3-pointer. I really like Laurie here, man. I could see marketing going bananas. I could see lots of 3-point shots here. I think Laurie's the guy that I really like in this situation, and I don't think they really have a wing that can take care of him defensively.
Not to just skip over to the Chicago side, but they're dealing with injuries on their own. And we've already talked about on the podcast Patrick Williams not being the defender that people thought that he would end up being. Just really like the spot for this Utah team. I think that Lowry is just fine. He just finds himself in a really weird price range, which is why he probably doesn't rank as one of the better point per dollar type of situations. But I think we can certainly translate that into a pick'em conversation. Just probably not going to be a spot that ranks as a top play necessarily.
Can you guess who is the worst defensive starter on this Chicago Bulls team right now?
Defensive starter? This is the trick question probably, but I'm going to guess Patrick Williams.
Well, technically he's not a starter anymore because it's Torrey Craig now. But you would have been right if you said that like 3 days ago. DeMar DeRozan, worst defensive starter on this team with a defensive rating of 117. Pretty awful at the end of the day. Some of the worst defenses in the NBA are around that 117 number, just to give you guys an idea of where that ranks. All right, let's talk about the other side because you're right. The Bulls are very, very in a very good spot today against this Utah Jazz team that one of the bottom defensive teams in the NBA. Injury-wise, Alex Caruso is probable with an elbow injury. Patrick Williams is probable with a finger injury. Ayo Dosunmu is questionable with this illness. I thought we already got the ruling that he was going to be out in this one, but maybe I was seeing something else. I thought their coach said that Ayo was going to be out for 2 games regardless, but like I said, maybe seeing someone else. Who do you like here? Because I do like a lot. I think that it really does start out with the upside that Zach LaVine has. His pure shot attempts right now are insane. And I know it took a slow down spot against Denver, but that's Denver. And now you're facing off against Utah in a really good spot.
Yeah, I think that you have to like something here. Even if we get the Caruso in, Patrick Williams in, Dosunmu in, I still think that Zach LaVine is in a really good spot, in a spot where like he just hasn't really seen a price adjustment really at all this season. I know that kind of lives and dies by him being able to put up nice points numbers, and you'll need some peripherals to get a true ceiling. But yeah, I think that LaVine's a candidate for 30 real life points tonight, and we've attacked this spot against Utah a lot, and we're going to attack it, continuously. So I like that. I think 7,400 is a very strong play. You'll probably, I guess, regardless of what happens with, for example, the Boston situation, I will take LaVine over Jaylen Brown right now. As far as just guys that can get buckets in this spot. So I'll take the Zach LaVine stuff here. I also do like Vooch, and I think that you can attack the interior against Walker Kessler. We've been attacking Vooch a lot recently, and it has paid off for us outside of that Denver spot, or the Brooklyn spot, I should say, which I think, still did fine. You would have wanted more from a points category, but can't always get that. So I like Vooch. I like LaVine. It's kind of where that stops for me.
Yeah, really like LaVine. I think that's all I'm going to point out here. The LaVine spot's elite, man. I mean, it's just all around. His shot attempts recently look like they tanked a little bit because of that last game, but they really didn't. I think overall he's a really good, solid option. I feel like I got to mention this because we kind of rid off Kobe right after he played in that first game. He didn't end up doing all that well. Is there any consideration here for Kobe White, who's now consistently in the 30s and getting more consistent with his overall DFS scoring as well?
Would that hurt if Dosunmu was in? Do we care?
Yes, it would hurt. It would hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit, a little interest. That's really all I can say, though. And by the way, nobody did well because they got smacked by Denver last time out.
Yeah, I mean, it's Denver. What are you expecting? Not much of a surprise there. All right, let's move over to Pick'em. I think it all starts out with Laurie for me. I really like the numbers. I think I saw 10.5 3-points attempted on Underdog earlier today. I really like that. It's 9 over here on PrizePicks. I really like that. I really like those Laurie numbers. And then for me, it's just LaVine. I know you like Vooch, but I like all the LaVine stuff. 24.5 points. It's going to come easy to him today. I would go points and rebounds if you're going to take like a combined stat approach at 28.5. But yeah, I like the spot a lot for Levine.
Sure, I can get behind it. Like I said, he's a 30-point candidate today, 24.5 on Underdog. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then, yeah, just to clarify, you are right. It is at 10 for 3 points attempted for Lowry. I think that 23.5 points is also firmly in play here, too.
Take it over on Prize Picks. Getting it at that number is much better. Getting it at 9 is better than getting it at 10. All right.
Hmm.
Anything else here, Jared? If not, we can keep it moving.
Nope, let's keep it moving.
All right, next game up is going to end up being the game that we are very excited to talk about. At least I know I'm very excited to talk about. It's going to be the Atlanta Hawks facing off against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Currently, the Thunder come in as 1 point favorites in this one, over under an astronomical 242, Jared.
Hmm.
Let's start off with Atlanta. Not coming in with many injuries for the Hawks, but there's definitely a little bit of here and there. You know, Wesley Matthews is out due to his calf injury, but I don't think that matters too much to today. What do you like here? Because there's one guy that I specifically really like, but I'm curious to hear who overall you're willing to go to in this spot.
Yeah, I think that the OKC side is definitely the more intriguing side, obviously, but the Atlanta side certainly carries its own. It does kind of depend on the guy in OKC playing or not in Shea, but yeah, I don't mind getting the spot for DeJounte Murray. I think that the price tag is a little bit on the cheaper end of what we could see in this spot. I would be, again, curious to see how they would match up, but it does feel like you could see Dort potentially going in a different direction. So that would open up, whether that's Trey, whether that's a wing. I do think that DeJounte probably draws the better matchup. Would you agree?
Um, I'm not sure. I am not. I mean, like, I respect Dort's defense. When it comes to three, Dort's more of a physical defender, though. Like we've talked about this before in the past. I know I talked about it last season that like Dort's better on guys who are going to drive a lot and going to rely on that inside game because he's such a physical defender. Against guys like Trey who can take a lot of threes, I don't know if his defense matches up nearly the same. I really like the Trey Young spot. I think DeJounte's
Okay.
just as good. I think DeJounte definitely carries like a lot of the same value and maybe a little bit less risk, but like I think both of these guys are studs today. I think the overall spot that they're put in is just really solid.
I think you want one of the two, and maybe you're just playing the price game.
Yeah.
Um, where, I think that as of this moment, you can see that DeJounte is definitely the cheaper guy on DraftKings. FanDuel is a bit closer to decipher. They're only 500 apart there, whereas on DK, they're $1,500 apart. DeJounte comes in at 7,800. So that's kind of where I'd be willing to look at. Look, I think it's not going to shock anybody. This is one of the best game environments on the slate. These two teams are top 5 in pace, and there's just going to be so many possessions that I think fantasy points just explode here. And so with the Shea injury, obviously, if he's out, then it's the most enticing game on the slate. Even without that, you still have a lot of intriguing pieces. So I think you're running at least one Atlanta guy. Um, and that's kind of just deciding price wise how you can make that work.
Yeah, and position wise too, right? Because I think that's something big that you have to think about
Yeah.
on
Hmm.
FanDuel. Trey's only point guard eligible, whereas DeJounte gives you that shooting guard eligibility. That could be a huge difference maker to you at the end of the day. Getting another point guard spot open for someone that you really like. Um, I agree. You're playing one of the two. It's just dependent on who you want to end up getting in there, and that's where you kind of got to go from. Um,
Yep.
let's talk about the OKC side because, like you said, this side is a little bit more enticing even without knowing the Shea news, I think it's a little bit more enticing because whether Shea misses or not, I really like this spot for Chet. I
Yep.
mean, this
Hmm.
this Atlanta team has been awful. We nailed the spot on Friday.
Yep.
I'm very happy we went in depth about it against Golden State, saying it was a really good play. Ended up being a really good play. Got 45 FanDuel points in that one. In a game they should have won. That ending was insane against Golden State. But
Hmm.
this spot's again really solid for Chet. I think that he is one of the top centers if you can't afford Nikola Jokic today, that's going to be my go-to guy when it's all said and done.
Yeah. As far as like this is the argument to not play uh, a cheap center. because you have this spot, you have Sabonis, which he probably ranks third on this list in the last games, and you have Joker. If you get like 25 from a Batadze play, then I think your night is probably toast, because I think that a lot of these centers could go for 50, 60, Jokic 75, 80. So yeah, in a spot where, I mean, I don't know, like pace of play between this game and the New Orleans Denver game is not close. Are you leaning Chet as the best center play?
Currently, yeah. It's just all about affordability, though. At the end of the day, like I think it's just about, can you get him in there? Because I think you kind of have like a core four almost, where you're playing. Most likely, you're playing a Pacer today. Most likely,
Mm-hmm.
you're playing a Spur today.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, you're playing a Hawk, and most likely, you're playing a Thunder player today.
Sure.
So, like, if you take four of those guys, all of them are most likely over 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
You get really limited in what price tags you can use. There's another guy on this OKC team that I think is completely viable today. Whether Shea plays or not, it doesn't really matter to me. I like Giddy a lot in this matchup today. I think he has to get the Trae Young matchup. I don't think they have many other options to give the Trae Young matchup to, because I think if they give it to Dort, he's just going to be kind of bodying him all day. I think they're going to think that Giddy's, since he's a passer, you're safest to put Trae on him. But I think Giddy has some scoring upside here. I like the Giddy spot 8 a lot today. And like I said, that's regardless of if Shea plays or not. I think the spot's a lot better if Shea does play, but I think regardless, Giddy's in a spot where he could absolutely terrorize Trae Young tonight. Because there's no way they're
Right.
going to put Trae Young on whoever's at the point guard position. Now, it all changes if they probably do put DeJounte on Giddy if Shea does not play, and they probably put Trae Young on Case of Wallace. But again, you just kind of got to wait and see. That's why the Shea news is so important today.
Yeah, that's why I think like waiting for the 8 p.m. window is your go-to target today, and that also clears things up for that Boston Minnesota game, which is going to help. Because I'm starting to warm up to this whole Al Horford situation, and if we get news shaking the right way, uh, well, you said Horford's only center eligible though, right? Because that would really actually kind of suck.
Yeah,
Uh,
he is only center
at least
eligible over on
you
FanDuel.
could at least use that to your advantage on DraftKings a little bit more. So
Yeah,
he is power forward of eligible on DraftKings is Horford, so that definitely helps you out over there. I would say that maybe this is a little bit of a something that isn't talked about as much, but Shea elevates the ceiling of this entire game. Wouldn't you agree?
I'm thinking. I'm not just not responding.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
it
think that's
makes
the
it.
first thing
I
people
think
point towards.
no. Well, I don't know. The only thing I worry about is like if Shea goes in, it's at home for OKC. I worry about it getting out of hand a little bit. I could see them getting
Mm,
out to a really fast start against Atlanta and it getting out of hand, which would worry me. I think if Shea doesn't
okay.
play, like this game is tooth and nail all the way to the end.
Sure. Yeah. I mean that definitely is a possibility. Vegas expecting this game to be a pick 'em as of or pick 'em 1 point spread kind of stuff.
I
Definitely
will
points in the
say,
direction that it's Shea's probably out if you're reading
mhm,
it that way. But
yeah,
let's also just take a second to say like yeah, I do like Giddy and I do like Chet. I like both of them. I think I like Chet regardless of the situation, but uh, SGA he was already ruled out yesterday. So the fact that he is now questionable, that's positive. President shoot around, that's also positive.
yeah, yeah. No, I would definitely agree. I would say that he's moving in the way of questionable slash possible or probable rather than pure questionable or questionable slash doubtful. Moving forward in the progress is definitely a good indication that the player might end up playing. So um, I don't know. It makes the whole OKC situation cloudy until you just get that Shea news. But like I said, you have to play a player here. I think someone has to be in play from OKC today that you put in your lineup.
So for people listening on FanDuel and DraftKings, can we say as of this moment that if Shea is in, you're playing one on each side. If Shea is out, you're playing a Hawk and you're probably playing two Thunder guys.
Correct. If Shea is out, you're definitely playing two OKC guys for sure.
Yep. Okay.
I would make a strong case during that to that. effect that you should probably be playing Case and Wallace as well. Been really solid. Got 30 minutes in the last one for Shea. He's didn't produce from a DFS standpoint. Only got 16 FanDuel points, but only 4,200. Not going to cost you an arm and a leg, and the spot's going to be solid against. Most likely, he's going to be the one that gets Trae Young defense if Shea ends up missing. So something to keep in mind.
The We can move to pick them in a second. They have had 2 days off since Friday. The Thunder have, and they will be playing a game on Wednesday at home as well. And then they go to Sacramento to play a group stage game on Friday.
Gotcha. All right. Anything else here? If not, let's move on to pick 'em. Talk about some stuff there.
No, let's move on to pick them. Obviously, very intriguing situation. I think that you can attack one of the DeJounte or Trey things here. I'm okay with either. And honestly, I think it's FanDuel and DraftKings. It's such a price-based decision, whereas I think you can go and do whatever you would like here.
For sure. All right. Let's talk about prize picks and underdog here. Let's start off with Atlanta. I really like the trade numbers. I really like the DeJounte numbers. I wish I had like a combo of the both of them. Maybe something that you could look at is Trae Young and Tyrese Halliburton, 21 and a half assists combined. I definitely don't
Okay.
mind going to that. You got to hope both get 10 and one goes a little bit over 10, but there's definitely a chance for it, especially with Trae in a high paced matchup. What do you like the most here?
Yeah, I think that the Trey Young points assist number is certainly in play at 33.5. Could expect double-digit assists today, which is what that line sits at on Underdog. We'll also just throw out that DeJounte has just been not clear, but he's definitely been on his window of games where he will ebb and flow over 20 points and under 20 points throughout the season, and he's currently on that overstretch as of right now. So he does a little bit of everything. So if you wanted to go 32.5 points, rebounds, assists, you will certainly need the points to be over 20. And it's something that he's done in the last couple matchups. So I like the 32.5 PRA.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely can get behind that 22 and a half. I think that's solid. On the other side, like I mentioned, I really like the Giddy stuff, kind of regardless of in and out. I think points and assists is the way that I would lean. 22 and a half is really solid. I think that's what I would lean with over here. Give me some Chet numbers that you like potentially.
Well, we always want the fantasy number, which unfortunately I don't think we'll have, at least over here on Underdog, for a couple hours. But the PRA sits at 26. That was what it was, 25.5 on Friday, and we played that, and he soared over it. I think that's in play, but look, I guess we'll play the game of Jared guesses what Chet Holmgren's fantasy score is on PrizePicks, because it was at 33 on Friday, and that was our favorite play of the day. I really hope they probably learned from that mistake. I will guess, Josh, that his fantasy score is 36.5
On who?
on
Sorry.
PrizePick, on Chet.
On Chet. Prize picks fantasy score is currently not up. They're not going to have it up until you get the Shea news.
Okay, well, and
But
I don't
his
blame them for
PRA,
that, but if it's anywhere under 35, you're taking it. And probably
yeah,
even anywhere under 40.
yeah. No, I agree with that. I think I can get behind that. Just essentially betting on does he hit value today, and I think he does.
Well,
So yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I do really like the spot. All right, anything else here? If not, let's keep it moving and move on to the next game.
Yeah, I guess last thing here is like you obviously want the fantasy score because he has the unlimited ceiling of blocks and steals. Hasn't really balled out like he did against Cleveland yet. So I think that something is coming with that, and that's probably where you'll probably get a fantasy number that's a little bit lower than expected today. And I think he hits. I think he hits value with or without Shea in anyway.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. All right. Next game up is going to be the Kings facing off against the Houston Rockets. Currently, with the Rockets at home, you have them as 2 point underdogs. Over under is set at 220. Or, sorry, not 220. Lowest number on the day, 218 and a half. Let's talk about this Kings side first. Look, I just think this defense or this offense got kind of ruined by De'Aaron Fox not being here. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's the train conductor, and things really suck when he's not there. It's not like Houston's playing any great defense or anything, but they are keeping things to an incredibly slow pace so far this season. I have no interest, man. This game's a real snoozer for me on such a loaded slate.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's running slow. Sacramento definitely not running as fast without Fox on the court. And we have a spot where these two teams just played. So I really don't have much to say about it. I think that you had some chances. We took our shots on a few spots, didn't pan out. And I think that there's just a lot of muddiness going on with that. And so just no interest in Sabonis would rank, again, third on the totem pole of centers in these last three games.
And this is from Underdog Fantasy or Underdog Network. They're where they have their injury report and everything. With games without Fox so far this season, they've scored 95 points per game. With Fox available, they've scored 125 points per game. So
Yeah.
gives you
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of an idea of how much it sucks to lose your conductor in De'Aaron Fox. Talking about the other side, I'm really not interested in the Rockets either. I think the Rockets are abysmal right now in terms of DFS, especially. Um, I just have no interest. I guess the one guy that like maybe you could get behind is Fred VanVleet, but I think you're taking a huge risk and not much reward there, based on his current price tag and stuff.
Yep. Taking huge risks on price. No thanks.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm not interested in pick 'em. If you're ready, we can move
No.
on. If you have anything though, let me know.
No. This is an easy fade game spot. Like it's 20 points lower than the game we just talked about.
Yeah, insane. All right. Last game is certainly not a fade game. Last game up is going to be the Pelicans facing off against the Denver Nuggets. Currently, Nuggets come in as 6.5 point favorites. Over under is at 221.5. Let's talk about the less interesting side. Let's talk about the Pelicans first. Well, I guess not less interesting. There's definitely some things that you have to talk about here. Mainly, found out yesterday CJ McCollum's going to be injured due to a collapsed lung. Didn't this happen like last year?
Mm-hmm.
Is this like just going to be a reoccurring thing for him?
Unfortunately, I think so.
That sucks. Anyway, yeah, he had the same ailment in 2021, was sidelined for 18 contests. So you're going to lose your ball handler in CJ McCollum. At least Underdog Fantasy expects that Kira Lewis is going to end up being the starter there at the point guard position. That's because Jose Alvarado is also injured right now.
Yep.
Trey Murphy and Najee Marshall also injured, just to clear those up. It does feel like we have to be interested in something, right? Without CJ, this team loses their guy who handles the point guard position. Who is it? Are you interested in taking a low priced risk on a guy like Kira Lewis, or are you looking at something with one of the more expensive guys?
I think that this is. I don't want to, but I think that you kind of have to just because the depth is so terrible. Um, I would lean with one of Kira Lewis or potentially just going and hoping Jordan Hawkins can get enough peripherals to get there. We saw this spot fail against Detroit, but against Atlanta and OKC, he has been able to get you in a spot where it's a lot, obviously I think the value is not necessarily where it was in that OKC game, but I think I would lean with starting the conversation with Hawkins because do you really want to, we talked about all the 8K players that we want. Do you really want to go and hope that New Orleans can keep things close without CJ and without a couple of these really valuable pieces and roster 8K Zion or 8K Brandon Ingram? I don't know how those guys would be like sixth or seventh behind DeJounte, Trey, Victor, Chet. Like there's so many guys that we want over them.
In the matchup, right? Like Zion gets Aaron Gordon. Well, I actually don't know how that would work. Because I mean, I guess Brandon Ingram in a pretty good spot against Michael Porter Jr. Maybe they end up putting like KCP, but that feels like too small of a defender for how lengthy Brandon Ingram is. So like, I I agree. I think you're going for a value play. I think it is Jordan Hawkins. I think it'd also be Dyson Daniels as well, who's been playing some consistent minutes and actually has a pretty good price tag and seems to be a really good point per minute contributor. I don't mind either one. I think I am firm in saying that like it's not. I don't think it's Carol Lewis. I think it's Dyson Daniels or Jordan Hawkins, and I lean Jordan Hawkins because at least they have some experience with having him in the starting lineup rather than
It's
Carol
something that
Lewis, who
we
would
know
be
as of right now.
yeah, yeah, or Dyson. I guess it could be Dyson Daniels too. Whichever one ends up in the starting lineup is probably the one I want.
Right. And so I think you're just kind of leaving one of these spots open, thankfully. Well, you kind of just have to. I don't know. I mean, you kind of just have to play one of the guys and hope that you're right. Kind of right. Like that's kind of where you're sitting.
I guess I think I'm fine with either one. Like both of them have shown the ability to come off the bench and do really well. So I don't think you're just guessing. I think you're
So
fine with taking which one you like more. For me, it's going to be Jordan Hawkins.
same here. This is a really easy decision on DraftKings. I think you play Hawkins, who is 4,600. If he doesn't start, then you play Daniels at shooting guard. They're both shooting guard eligible as well as, they're both shooting guard eligible. So you just play Hawkins and you just swap them if one of them starts. So, um, yeah, that's kind of how I would approach that. On FanDuel, you have to you just have to, I think you just choose Hawkins as your second shooting guard and go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I don't think there's anything else. Like you mentioned, like we're not playing either the high price players in this matchup, and it's just a tough spot for the rest of this team. But let's talk about the Denver side, who is obviously going through the fact that Jamal Murray is going to be out with this hamstring injury. We're expecting Reggie Jackson to take over the point guard role. I think we all know that like it's not going to be Reggie playing point guard. It's going to be Nikola Jokic playing point guard.
Yep.
How do you handle this? Is he an automatic must start? Does he? I think there's like some clear. I think there is a little bit of a worry for me that like this makes Nikola Jokic's role worse than it does make it better. Like the fact that he has to play make so much now is going to take away from scoring options and opportunities. And because of that, you're going to see him take a little bit of a downfall. I think the side that I'm more excited about a Michael Porter, an Aaron Gordon, someone else on this team that can give you some upside in terms of shooting the ball.
Yeah, I mean the best pick and roll duo in the league now is just pick and not roll.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't think that they replicate that with anybody. We would target Brown in this matchup. We would target, Gordon would get some love here too. I just think point per dollar as of right now, I lean with Chet over Jokic, and maybe that will come back to bite me today. But it's such a thousands of dollars worth of difference that I think that you're just doing it. Like for example, on DraftKings, this is a $3,900 difference. On FanDuel, it's pretty close to the same thing. So I don't know. I think that Jokic is just fine. We talked about him potentially having a 70-point fantasy performance in there. And we've seen that he's done that the last two games. So I think that this is all nice, but he's going to come in as a top 5 center play. I have no issue saying that. You probably have no issue saying a top 3 center play. But is he the best one for your lineup? I think things get dicey and you have to leave off an 8, maybe even 2 8K plays, which you really could need if things fall correctly, if you put Joker in there instead. And that's where things get dicey. So I say that all to say I think he's a fine play. I kind of have some stock interest in Christian Brown today too.
Yeah. I can get behind it, man. He's a
I think
hooper
if there's anybody that could benefit from this the most, it would be Brown getting closer to 25, 30 minutes.
You think it's Brown or you think it's Reggie?
I
think it's Reggie.
I think people will play Reggie, but I think
we should play Reggie.
I think we should play Reggie too. Like I think that's your cash game play. I like Brown a lot just because we've known that he's stepped up in situations like this. But I agree with you. Reggie probably he draws the start. It's just, do you play him over Hawkins, or does it matter? Do you just play both of those min price?
You play both of them.
Price pieces, but yeah,
you play both of them. You need some value today. I mean, like
you do.
We are waiting on injury news, but like we don't have a lot of other value spots. I guess it's kind of determined by what the Spurs do. But outside of the Spurs, where else do you get value in any other game that we've talked about so far?
Well, that's where I think can you even afford an 11K guy or 12K guy in Joker?
No, no, you can't.
Right.
It's at least incredibly hard to do. So, it really brings the case of like, I guess you can. It really just depends on if you fade Tyrese Halliburton, you can, and you're going to stretch yourself really, really thin, and have a few pieces that you're not comfortable with. Most likely, if you end up doing it that way.
Well, this is kind of just at the point of the show where we're making our final thoughts, and have a full grasp of what we're doing at this moment on the slate. Now things could change in a matter of seconds, but you have two games that are close to a 240 total. One of them over, one of them a little under. And we said that you have to play pieces of those games. So I can't imagine fading Tyrese against a spot where they're 9-point favorites. I get it, but at the same time, if that game blows out, he probably has a lot to do with it. So,
Yeah.
and if the game stays close, which we kind of banked on with rostering Wembanyama, then Tyrese goes for 50 FanDuel points. So I don't know. I think that I would rather. I think you don't have to play anybody over 10K on FanDuel today to make things work.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that 10K guys are really tough to get to today with how things build out. Without knowing the value of what San Antonio gives us, you're kind of just waiting and seeing um, until you can find some value on this slate. But like San Antonio is the key source of that value. Hopefully, getting Branham in helps things out a little bit, but we kind of just got to wait and see. Jared,
Yep.
let's talk about pick'em stuff really quickly for this game and then get out of here. I think this is where you can attack your Jokic numbers. I really want to just key in on assist here. 9.5 is too low. He's going to get double digits today.
Okay. I definitely don't mind that. And we know that he will play point guard. There's nothing wrong with that. We've seen the sample size be large enough to where this is a thing. So, yeah, is there any world where New Orleans keeps this game close enough? I mean, I know that the spread
Vegas
indicates they
says
will,
so.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that is true. I just could see things getting way out of hand as well.
What do you think gets more out of hand, this game or the Philly game?
Oh, Philly for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. Which game do you think gets more out of hand, this game or the Pacers game?
That's a trick question. Next, please.
A little bit, a little bit. Regardless, though, I think this one has a safe chance of staying close. I think adjusting your offense completely for losing Jamal Murray is going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah,
I think Jokic definitely helps that, but it just makes things a whole lot more reliant on guys making their shots. When you have Murray, you don't need the other offensive pieces to do great because you know Nikola is going to be able to score points consistently. Without Murray, he has a lot less chances to score. So,
sure.
something to keep in mind. All right. I don't have anything. Oh, well, okay. Nikola Jokic, like a main number I'd want to attack, 22 rebounds and assists. I think they're losing trust in Joval. I don't know if you watched the game over the weekend with the Hawks and the Pelicans, but they ended up sitting Joval for almost the whole fourth quarter, and they got out rebounded like 50 to 30 or something ridiculous. It was. I don't know if it's a bad coaching choice or if it's just like not trusting in what Joval brings to the table, but I think if they continue to do that, Nikola Jokic is going to go ham on the boards, and I already think the assists are there. So I really like that number of 22.
Sure. I have no issues with that. I think that you got to pick and choose the Joker spots. And we've seen him just be an incredible points scorer. Joker has as of late, and losing that. I think he'll just have to have a more balanced game today and not
Yeah.
necessarily. I mean, like, sure, I think he is good for 25, but I don't think we're going to see this explosion like 35, 40 point thing. He'll play point guard and he'll be able to rack up. He could have a 12 to 15 assist game. So I like that too.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Jared, anything else from the pick'em side? If not, we can give our final thoughts and then get out of here, man.
I don't think you should be, in a spot where you're not banking on price. Just don't play the Pelicans for that tonight.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. All right. Final thoughts. Anything you like or how do members win all the money this week? This
Well,
today, not this week.
yeah, I think it just goes back to something we just said. I don't think you have to spend up for that guy, and whether that's Giannis, whether that's Joker, whether that's Luca. I mean, I think that you can make comfortable builds without having to spend 10K on a player today, and that goes for both sites. Actually, before I say that, I just want to make sure that Tyrese is not 10K on DraftKings. No, he's not. So I don't think you have to go that direction. I think that you just attack the best. The best. We have two games that are close to 240 totals. You play those and then you figure it out. And this is going to be a spot where you got Monday Night Football and you got a few other things going on. Maybe some news gets lost in the cycle here. So this is a spot where you're going to have to prepare yourself for the 8 p.m. window based on Shea news, and hopefully we're able to read and react accordingly for all that. And thankfully we get some of the biggest news at the beginning of the slate and you figure it out from there.
Yep, for sure, without a doubt. All right, let's get out of here, man. Thank you all for listening, and as always, my name is Joshua Riemer. Good night and good skill.